Hey, what's up everybody? It's Axel, and today's video is going to be about the Moondrop Kadenz, a new 10mm single dynamic driver IEM. I'll show you guys what comes in the box quickly, then tell you my thoughts on the sound, and then we will do a few comparisons to other IEMs around the same or similar price range. What comes in the box is this carrying case, nice carrying case with a zipper. Kind of holds the IEM, the cable, and even a nozzle or two adapters, no problem. And you get the regular stock silicone gray looking ear tips, and then you get the Moondrop spring ear tips, which I do recommend you try because I measured with the measurement. They show a slight difference, maybe not audible, but they are comfortable and they kind of stick in your ear, and that's something nice. Then we get tuning nozzles. 3 are included, 1 is pre-installed on the IEM itself, and as you can see, they actually don't change the sound at all 3 of them. I measured them, I will show you the graph. They don't affect the frequency response, but they do affect the comfort, and as you can see, this one on the left side is a bit shorter, so this could give you a better comfort or worse comfort depending on the shape of your ear. And the other nozzle, think of it as an extra spare pair of nozzles. The stock cable that provided is a 4.4, and we have an adapter that, this one actually, we have an adapter that converts the 4.4 to a 3.5, and it's actually very sturdy. All this part here is solid metal, and it's kind of like you can use it with other IEMs. I like it. I think it's an alternative to the modular cables. The cable itself is a much better improvement to the cable that came with the Kato, and it has this very nice like wrap around it, and it feels very smooth. It's slightly stiff, not as soft, but it doesn't tangle with me, and you can like wrap it very comfortably. Zero microphonics, good quality, and you know, it stays on the desk. Again, it's a slightly stiff cable, but no issues when in use. And then we have this very nice 4.4 to USB-C Echo B DSP cable. And this actually unlocks a lot of stuff. I will mention later what this cable does, because it has EQ profiles on the app itself, the Moondrop updated app, the Moondrop Link 2.0, and it actually allows you to customize any EQ that you like, so you can use whatever EQ that you want and feel comfortable with. Now, this is the IEM itself. This is how the Kadenz look like. They are a bit gray in color, and as you can see, they are all solid metal all around. Recessed 2-pin, which is my favorite type of connection. 2 vents, as you can see, and the nozzle diameter, I will post the picture. It's 6.5 millimeters. For my ears, the fit and comfort is amazing. I didn't have issues with it. It has a much better fit to me compared to the Kato, where I felt the Kato sometimes I couldn't securely fit it in my ear. It could like fall out, like push itself out. Here I have no issues, and that's it. Now let's start talking about the sound. Let's start with looking at the graph, and as you can see, it's a very smooth type of sound signature. Not a lot of focus on the bass and not a lot of focus on the treble. Rather, we get a mid-centric type of tuning. And let me start my experience with talking about the bass. The Kadenz takes the approach of quality over quantity here. You don't get a lot of bass, but you get a high quality bass presentation. So it gives you actually a good amount of punch. There is a good amount of slam, and it even rumbles, but it leaves something to be desired, and I felt that I wanted a bit more sub-bass extension, at least for my taste. And for my taste as well, I kind of prefer a bit more mid-bass than that, just to give me that punch and slam factor that I'm looking forward to. But speaking of the amount that is there, I felt that it didn't make me feel that anything is lacking when I listen to the music, but it's more focused on the mid-bass, so it carries that meaty type of bass presentation that's very textured, very clear, very detailed, and it doesn't overwhelm you that much. Think of it as a bass performance that is very textured, very clean, detailed, but it's a bit light on the impact and a bit light on the sub bass. Moving on to the lower mid-range, the mid-bass actually carries and gives a bit of body and weight, note weight, to the lower mid-range. So expect the lower mid-range to sound a bit full, a bit rich, a bit natural sounding, let's say, and it has the proper note weight. But the thing is, the mid-range is very emphasized in this IEM, and the Kadenz just takes a mid-centric approach to the tuning, where the vocals and the mid-range is the highlight of the whole sound signature. You're basically hearing lots of instruments that live in the mid-range being very highlighted, lots of vocal forwardness, female vocals sound very, very nice. They sound very spacious and lively and extended, and they definitely get the highlight when you're listening to it. I think this is great for anything that has vocals and instruments. Even instrumental music sounded amazing with it. Moving on to the treble, we get what I call a natural approach to the treble. It's not emphasized, and it doesn't have the sparkle that, you know, the shimmer factor that you get with other IEMs, but rather it sounded very natural to me. Cymbal crashes sound like cymbal crashes without getting a bit too forward. You know, some air is there, absolutely, but it's not an, you know, airy, sparkly, shimmery type of treble presentation. More of like a natural sound, a bit balanced. Think of like what you hear in real life. This is something that's close. And in terms of technicalities, soundstage and imaging, let's bring up the technical scale and put this IEM. This is a bit more resolving than the Nova, definitely. I tested them side by side. It has more detail and separation than the Nova, but still it has a long way to go before it reaches the level of the Pilgrim. So let's say like it's 30% between the Nova and the Pilgrim, you know, definitely less resolving than the Performer 5+2. And in terms of the soundstage, I would describe it as average. In terms of the imaging, I would describe it as all right. It's nothing that stands out to me specifically. It has good imaging. There is those special cues are there, but it's not something that stands out when I listen to it. Now, let me take a moment to talk quickly about this USB-C cable because it provides a few EQ profiles, and I will mention them quickly. I measure them so that you can see the differences I'm talking about. I like the normal stock, okay, and my custom EQ, but when I used the Bass Plus EQ profile, just pushes the bass way too much over my preference, and it kind of makes the sound a bit warm, and it kind of like made the upper mid-range take a backseat a little bit. Like the vocals didn't pop out as they usually do with the stock tuning, so that is something to look out for. And when I use the Bass Plus, which is the second profile, oh my gosh, the bass became so much, and it kind of like started to cover the upper mid-range, and I started to feel the upper mid-range is starting to take a very back seat now. It's not like front and center stage like it's used to be on the stock tuning. And in the soundstage, again, I didn't prefer the Soundstage Plus profile. It just pushed the upper mid-range way too much. Does it increase the soundstage? Maybe slightly. You know, it's a very small difference. And the Treble Plus, again, not for me, but it could be for the treble lovers out there. Yeah, it definitely pushes the treble up in the upper mid-range even a lot. Let me start the comparison segment. I will start the comparison segment with the Kato. You can see the cable here. It's a mess. I'm not a fan of the cable of the Kato. It's a very stiff cable. In terms of the sound, the Kato is a less detailed version of the Kadenz with a few differences in the sound. It has a lot more bass. The Kadenz has a lot more bass, which adds to the enjoyment factor of it. But at the same time, the upper mid-range is a bit tame in comparison, and it's much, much less detailed than the Kadenz. The Kadenz is superior. When I listen to the Kadenz after listening to the Kato, it's like a veil was lifted from the Kato. While actually this is surprising because the Kato is actually a very resolving IEM. It has good technicalities, but like the Kadenz is much better in that regard. Better separation, better texture in the bass, even better treble quality. It's a bit more on the Kato, but the quality is there for the Kadenz. And for me, like, I'm selling the Kato right now. I will not keep it anymore. It had its time. I lived with it. It's amazing, but the Kadenz is just a superior improvement to the Kato. Let me bring now the Tanchjim Origin, one of my favorite single dynamic driver IEMs. It's kind of like priced similar to the Kadenz. I have to say, tonality wise, I kind of prefer the Origin a lot more. It's just tuned to my preference. I kind of prefer the tonality much more, and you can look at the graph and see it has a bit more bass. I even want more bass and a bit more sub bass than the Origin, but the level of the Origin, the bass of the Origin, makes me feel it's not lacking anything, and the upper mid range is tuned in a way that makes me feel nice. It's within my comfort zone, and it doesn't like sound a bit energetic or a bit too forward. Whereas, again, the Kadenz is not shouty, but it's definitely highlighting the mid-range over anything else. So it has that mid-centric type of tuning, the mid-range focus. In terms of level of detail, they are actually kind of similar. To be like that surprised me. Like, if I had to give the edge, I have to give it to the Origin, but they're different in terms of separation. When the tracks gets busy, when the music gets the busy passages, I think the Origin maintains that separation better than the Kadenz, slightly better. And the tonality overall, I prefer the Origin. It has a bit more mid-bass for my taste, which is awesome, makes it a bit more fun. And the upper mid-range is just slightly less, which makes it amazing, you know? So between these two, I would prefer the Origin, but the Kadenz is still attractive because it comes in at a lower price point. And if you use something like this DSP cable, you can basically tune it whatever you like, and it's going to sound amazing. The last comparison I will bring here is the SIMGOT EA1000. The EA1000 is a bit unique, and I'm just going to describe my experience with it. I always, every time I test an IEM and I try to compare it to the EA1000, for the first 10 seconds I'm impressed with it. It definitely has good bass texture. It has very good detail retrieval, but it is, at least for me, guys, I'm going to say it as it is. It's a bit shouty, a bit shrill, and has a bright tonality, an overly bright tonality for my taste at least. But I keep it for comparison because it has good texture in the bass and it has a good amount of detail. To me, the Kato is like a refined or a more mature version of the EA1000. Level of detail between them is similar, but maybe like the EA1000 is just 10% better. It just gives like a lot of detail in your face in the mid-range because the way of the tuning, but the resolving ability itself is very similar. And without the mid-range, I think if you EQ them to the same target, I don't think most people will be able to tell the difference. The Kadenz is as resolving as the EA1000. It's just that the EA1000 is brighter, so of course it pushes more detail, you know, in the upper mid-range in your face. Another difference between the Kadenz and the EA1000 is that when the track gets busy, the bright tonality of the EA1000 kind of makes things a bit, you know, not mushy, but the bright sound kind of overshadows some of the elements of the music, and I find myself trying to turn down the volume. Whereas on the Kadenz, as I said, it's a bit tamer, so it's a bit better. You don't have to do that, so you kind of hear more when the track gets busy. Whereas when the track gets busy here, you kind of feel that the upper mid-range, lower treble, kind of get a bit distracting, if you will. That 4 to 6K area is a bit elevated, so that is the major difference between them. That's it, you know, that's the comparison with the EA1000, you know, depending on your taste and your preference, of course, you're going to like one or the other. An honorable mention in the end, if someone wants a more relaxed tuning, a bit more easygoing, a bit warmer sound signature, I recommend the DUNU Falcon Ultra. Check that out. It's also another impressive single dynamic driver, but it's a bit warmer in the sound signature. Now let's talk about the section who do I recommend this to, who I don't recommend this to. I recommend the Kadenz for people who want a mid-centric or, you know, vocal focused sound signature, people who like the vocals, people who like to hear the vocals and instruments more than anything else. You're going to find it with Kadenz. I also recommend it for those who are looking for a cohesive single dynamic driver sound at this price point. I think this is an attractive price point, and for those people who want to use EQ or want to use something on the go like the USB-C cable, I think overall the package is attractive and you can use it at any time. Who do I don't recommend this to? This is also very important. Bass heads and bass lovers, this is not for you. This doesn't have a lot of bass, and if you're looking forward to it, you're not going to find it here. There are other IEMs that give you a bit more bass than the Kadenz. Let's bring on the final rating of the Kadenz, and I will say I will give the Kadenz a solid 4 stars out of 5. You know, like, still it doesn't have the sub bass that I'm looking forward to, doesn't have still the mid bass that I'm looking forward to for my personal preference, and the upper mid range could be slightly a bit more tame to make it a bit more enjoyable and relaxing listen, so that's why it gets a 4. But if someone is going to use this DSP cable, I think it can easily become a 4.5 star IEM because it definitely has the level of detail and separation that other IEMs have around this price point, and just with a minor tweak to the sound, you can definitely take it there. But I'm giving it the fair rating because many people are going to buy this and are going to listen to it with a stock cable, and for me it's a good recommendation for those who love vocals, those who love a forward mid-range. You're going to get it here. It's an excellent IEM. And that concludes our review of the Moondrop Kadenz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you have any question, leave it down in the comment section below and I will get back to you. And until then, I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.